All right, well, welcome everybody. Hopefully everybody is here for the right conference. How to get experience when you have no experience. One of the things we want to talk about is kind of the paradox. I have to kind of like get behind my back to get this to work. How do we get experience when nobody will hire me without experience, right? That's always a challenge. Everybody says, you need experience. We don't have experience, but I need experience. We have a solution for you. So what Lori and I have done is we've worked with our R&D department, and we've come up, if I can get this to work, I may have to stand over here just so I can get the remote to work.
You're going to need to stand here to be in the frame.
There we go. We've come up with canned experience that you can bring to your interview. You bring the cans of experience to the interview. You say, how much experience do you need? I've got all the experience you could ever want. Now, of course, it's not this easy. Glad you realized this was a joke. A little bit about me. I'm a software executive. I've been a hiring manager for years. I'm a nerd. I'm a ham operator. I'm such a nerd, I use the Dvorak keyboard layout. I work with boats. I'm on a boat crew. I'm an instructor. I'm a vessel examiner. So, done all those things. That's a little bit about me. And here's some visuals about, some of my volunteer work. I'll let Lori tell you a little bit about herself.
So, for those of you that don't recognize me because I'm in uniform, I am a longtime scale chair, about 15, 16, 17 years, and an organizer of a collective group of crazies called Raise Me, who like to help people with their technical careers and do it for free. Also, I'm a member of the Coast Guard Auxiliary, and I am boat crew, and I just qualified for a role called watchstander, which I'm very proud of. I'm a National Branch Assistant. Thank you. I'm a National Branch Assistant there, and my background is, and you'll hear things from this perspective, I'm a former hiring manager. I was an executive at several startups, and everywhere I went, I was a hiring contrarian. So here are my volunteer lives. So this talk is about how to integrate your volunteer experience with your regular career and how to have them enhance each other. And my volunteer experience at Scale did exactly that for me. My leadership, I started out just volunteering at Scale, and then I moved into leadership roles, and eventually I had a budget, I had several teams of people working for me. All of this informed my other career, which was leading engineers. And it gave me things to talk about when I was meeting people for the first time. And indeed, if I ever wanted to go back to work, I could talk about my work in the Coast Guard Auxiliary as a second level manager, and with all the formal training I've got in the auxiliary, I would have a lot to say.
All right, so what we're going to cover today is talking about how to get experience when you don't have experience. We're going to go through looking at the experience paradox, how that fits into the Raise Me game plan, how to make your volunteer and work connection happen, and then answer any questions you have. So let's dive in with addressing the experience paradox. One of the best ways that we've found to do this is volunteer work. And people want to know, well, why volunteer work? Well, for volunteer work, you end up with flexibility in qualifications. You get hands-on experience. Volunteer organizations are desperate for people to help. So if you have an interest in learning something, they are more than willing to give you the chance to learn it, build some skills for yourself, and help out the organization. This also gives you the hands-on experience. If you're a developer and you want to do cybersecurity, if you're doing one thing and want to do another, all of those things can be done in a volunteer organization, and they're very flexible about when and how you can do that. When we're looking at the time commitment, because I mentioned when, the time is also very flexible. They know you have another life. It's not a 40-hour-a-week commitment. It might be as little as 1 hour a week. It might be as much as you have if you're in between jobs. But the great thing is that they are willing to work with you and let you put in the time that you have. They understand that you've got other things going on. This is an awesome way to build those skills, but do it in the time schedule that you have. And to me, the biggest thing about going through and working in a volunteer organization is how rewarding it is. You know, being able to work in something that I think is really a worthwhile cause, and in our case, it's saving lives, that is really rewarding. Knowing that we're doing that, knowing that I'm leaving the world a better place than I found it. I feel that we're all members of a community and we have an obligation as a community to leave the community better than when we found it. So I'm going to give you an example of how volunteering helped me re-career. So many years ago, let's see if I can get this. I hit the wrong button. There we go. Met a young lady. We were dating. I didn't get to see her a lot because she was involved in theater. So I started working backstage, learning how to run sound, how to do lighting, all those things. Started doing those things, and that led to me changing careers and spending 10 years as an audio engineer. So I did everything from television to corporate events to arena shows. One of the things I didn't know until I was driving up with Brian this morning, that if you see down here in the corner, there's a backstage pass from Barbra Streisand's final tour. Brian and I worked on the same show and never knew it.
Well, how about that?
So that's kind of crazy. So here's some ways that you can get experience that are unpaid. We're here at scale, right? We all know about open source projects. There's a whole room full of people over in the convention center that would love to have help on their projects. This is a great way to do work because it not only gives you the opportunity to look at other people's code, but hiring managers get to see how it is you interact with other people. They get to see the code you've actually committed. They get to see how do you interact with the team to resolve issues. All those things are great ways that give you a real leg up over somebody that only has a resume to throw at them. This is where Lori got me last year. So last year at a very similar talk, and my friend over here dragged me into it because she goes, "Oh, I know, Lori, we need to stay for this." You know, it's the volunteer, get involved. The Scale is the largest community-run open source conference in North America. And it's because of all the volunteers that come together and make it work. And whether it's functioning as a speaker, or I know my buddy Paul back there has been doing tech work for years. There's all kinds of things that need to be done, and it's great to give back to the community. And that's, after all, why we're here at Scale. We want to learn more about it. And the more people we meet, the more networking there is, and it's more of an opportunity for us to realize, hey, I'm working on this, and she's looking for a job over here. Hey, have you talked to Lori about this? It's an opportunity for us to network, meet people, and understand things about the industry, in addition to just getting the hands-on experience. We can also have fun while we're getting experience. My son was involved in Cyber Patriots. He went through, there you go. He was a team captain, led his team to silver level for 2 years, and he's actually put that on his resume. That's helped him get work. People are impressed by that, but that's the kind of thing that we can do. So whether it's going to a hackathon or competing in a cybersecurity contest, all those things are great to have. Create a section on your resume so you can actually record what you've done, what you've achieved, and that'll be impressive to people. Another thing that's important is finding a mentor. It's important to have some guidance. We often feel lost when we're in between jobs or starting or looking for mid-career going, I don't know what I want to do next. Having a mentor to talk to, provide advice, is a great way to learn not only the skills, but learn kind of from a roadmap perspective how to lay out your career, what you might want to do next. Have a sounding board of experience that can help you with that. And if you're going to find a mentor, one of the other things you can do is be a mentor. Everybody in this room is qualified to be a mentor to somebody else. All of us have something to give to somebody else that wants to learn something that we know. And this is a great opportunity to not only share that knowledge, but it's an opportunity for us to gain experience that we can put on our resume saying, yes, I mentored 3 people, that are going through and wanted to learn more about software or wanted to learn more about cybersecurity or whatever it is. This is a great opportunity for all of us to keep busy and show that we know what we're doing and that we're willing to share and work with other people. This is the one that Lori dragged me into.
Look out.
That if you go to meetings,
You're next.
you can speak at meetings. Now, it doesn't have to be a meeting this big. When back in the early 2000s, I was working at a company, was talking to a buddy of mine, and we're saying, gee, it would be great to have like a reading group or something, because it would be great to go through and study with a bunch of people the Gang of Four's design patterns book. Well, there weren't any book groups to do that. So what David did is he reached out to the LA Java users group and said, hey, I'd like to start a group. And he did, and that group, even though that David and I ended up leaving the group after a while, that group went on for years. So not only was he speaking and getting things going, but it was an opportunity to create something that carried on and that he could be proud of. He later went on to become CTO of some publicly traded companies, has had a great career. So that was pretty exciting for me as well. And we have different social circles that we work in, whether it's our family, whether it's people that we play sports with, different groups that we belong to, our families. All those things come together, and we should be talking with people about, here's what I want to do with my career. How is your career going? What can I do to help you? Connections come in unexpected places. My son was talking to one of my wife's cousins and discovered that, oh, hey, it turns out that Steve is the CTO for AT&T. My son's a computer science major. What an amazing connection, because they were talking about work and what they want to do. So always be talking to people about what you want to do, what your goals are, and what it is that you'd like to do and how you can help those people. Now, I know we all got into computers so we didn't have to deal with people. And it's not always comfortable for us. So I'm not saying, go to big meetups, be uncomfortable or any of that. But there are people that we deal with in ways that we are comfortable, and just leverage those opportunities to learn more about what people can offer and what we can do for them. And then another thing is that often we're working and then we're not working. And it's really important that in that time between jobs that we get busy. Not just looking for another role, but how do we volunteer? How do we fill that time to show, that what was I doing I was building skills, I was taking classes, I was volunteering and building my resume while I was in between those roles. That's really a key thing for putting together more experience, showing everybody what we've done and how we're doing it, and then having a more presentable resume to go into that next role. So I've talked a bit about how to address the experience paradox. Lori's going to chat a little bit about how that additional experience fits into the overall Raise Me game plan. And I'm going to hand her the advancer because
I get the
we were going to
clicker.
have two, but it didn't work out that way.
I know that some of you are probably already thinking, I want that consulting appointment. So there are consultants out there just waiting to talk to you. Let me introduce a little bit our Raise Me game plan, how we recommend at Raise Me that people re-career or find their next career steps. First of all, here we go. We have 4 steps. We aim, we build, we reveal, and we converge. Okay, the first step is aiming. Where are you going to go next? If you are, you can tune out for a minute if you already know the next job that you want. For those of you that don't, we have some suggestions. Okay, you need to pick a marketable skill set, and by that we at Raise Me we recommend the skills not just that will get you hired today, but that will be useful for your employer in 2 years. So think ahead. Also an appropriate role. Some people, they want to re-career. Re-careering means you're making a change. Sometimes, 2 years ago when I was giving this a similar talk, there was a woman that had a master's degree in fine arts, and she wanted to be a system administrator. She wasn't going to translate directly from the role that she had. It was a leadership role working for a museum. It wasn't going to translate directly to a leadership role in the technical, in the IT world, right? She needed to start over at a more junior position so that she would have time to focus on her own skills before she was responsible for other people's output. And the second thing to help you aim is to decide where you're going. And if you already know the company you want to work for, if you already have friends working at a certain place, if you already have a direction, then you don't need any advice. But if you are trying to figure out where to go next, here's what we recommend you do. Look for a strong industry, an industry that's on the growth side, and look for companies that are growing. The reason you pick an industry that is growing is because then if the company you're working for runs into trouble or gets acquired, then you can go work for a competitor that's doing even better. Okay, and the way I do this and the way that consultants will show you to do this is we use Google, we use LinkedIn, we use the free resources out there to do our mining. Now remember that some of the places that are blogging this information has something to sell you. They want you to buy their stock or they want you to pay for their consulting services. But every time you sit down and to work on your career, to look for a job, to look for a place to go to next, to tune your resume, look around and see what the publications are saying about where the growth industries are and which companies are doing better. It's the same is true for what skills to go to. If you have time to take classes, these are just random. I'm not recommending these. These are just from one random Googling. If you know you have time to pick up more skills, you're not sure what to do next, you're not on a project that says, hey, we need someone that knows Julia, then what you can do is go to the blogs, and if you read enough sources, eventually what you see will start to resonate. Even though they're trying to sell you their classes and things, they will all agree on something, and that will help give you direction. And this is kind of tiny, but top of the list, AI, machine learning, and Docker, Linux, Java. This is not even an open source site recommending these skills. Okay? Here's another thing. You're doing exactly what people need to do to work on their careers, whether you're looking for a role or not. You're attending the largest open source grassroots conference in North America. Here's sponsors. These are companies that are doing so well, they can afford to help pay for scale. And they're here to talk to you. And these companies have openings, and they are looking for people with your skill sets who are passionate about open source. You can't get a more targeted experience than coming to scale and talking to exhibitors on the expo floor. So, raise me game plan. So that's where you aim. The second step is to build. You need to build qualifications that will persuade a potential employer with an opportunity that you're a good fit for their team. And here's what our consultants will recommend. You treat the in-between time like a job. Jenson already mentioned this. Okay, I even tell people to take Jenson's tips. Make it a separate block on your resume, just like it was another employment block. Give it a start and end date, a little summary that says, "Hey, I learned, I learned, I picked up AWS. I learned, I managed to complete some certifications. I founded a meetup group." Make it a whole separate block. It gives you something to talk about, just as if you were talking about a previous job. Don't forget, for your open source projects, include those links on your resume. There's nothing that takes the risk out of hiring somebody more than a hiring manager being able to click on a link and seeing what your work looks like before they hire you and train you. The third step in our game plan is to reveal all of those skills that you've either recently acquired or that you found in your past that you want to talk about that make you qualified. Now, this does not have to cost money. And this is important when we're in between jobs, and we're also cheapskates because, we're open source. So your new skills and experience need to go on your LinkedIn profile. You can build your brand in social media. We're all on different social networks, right? Always be kind of in mental promotion phase. Be sure to link to groups, participate in groups, talk online, and publish your work to open source repositories, so that people can search for it and find it with the right keywords. The role you want also needs to be communicated, okay? Not just what your skill sets are. And in your link, there's a tagline that goes underneath your name on your LinkedIn profile. Be sure to keep that up to date. Looking for a role doing X in Y industry. Another thing that is a really powerful tool is the elevator pitch. The elevator pitch is this 30-second pitch that you would give to somebody that you stepped on an elevator with on the first floor and only had until floor 10 to give them a complete picture of who you are and that you're looking for work, what kind of job you're looking for, and why you think you're qualified. Practice this elevator pitch until it's natural, until it's 30 seconds or less, until it's not an apology for you being out of work. It's a very positive, forward-looking message about yourself. The last thing that we have heard that people do, and I have not had an attendee do this yet, but they say the 90-second video can be a very worthwhile experience. It's not just creating a 90-second video showcasing your work, talking about what kind of companies you'd like to work for next. One thing it does is it helps you decide in your own mind what you want to do next. It's not just to show other people. But the most important tool of all for revealing your skills and your desire for a new opportunity is your resume.
Grab this. So your resume is important. How many people have sent out the same resume to a whole bunch of companies? How well does that work?
How many
Exactly.
did you send? 10? 12? Okay.
So what we recommend is that you use a targeted resume. Now, how many of you have tried to write a targeted resume?
Good.
How many found it a giant pain?
Ooh.
There you go. So what we found is that the painful part, and certainly for me, is the writer's block of I'm looking at a job listing. I'm trying to figure out what do they do, what do I write, how do I do this? And so the challenge is, how do I get to this targeted resume? Well, Raise Me figured out that instead of struggling and writing, it's a lot easier to delete things. And we're going to talk about how you can do that so that you're not writing, you're starting with a master resume, and you're deleting the things that you don't need. where we start in building our master resume is just an original narrative. It's a brain dump about all the things that you've done in each particular job. My colleagues from Mgage and Calera will recognize some of the things that I did. These are not things that necessarily going to go on the resume, but it's just to get you to think about everything that you've done. I went all the way back to, in my narrative, to when I was mowing lawns as a kid, to just get everything I've done. Because there was stuff that I'd forgotten. Oh yeah, I did this. Oh yeah, I worked as a dishwasher in a nursing facility when I was in high school. Oh yeah, I worked on this, Wang microcomputer when I was in college. Going through all those things kind of helps us look at not just the individual skills that we have and the tasks that we performed, but it also helps us identify, is there an arc to our career? Is there something that looks like we're heading toward? Is where we're heading toward where we want to go? Those are all really good things to have. So the next step after having this giant narrative is to go through this and create a master resume. And the idea with the master resume is I'm taking each block and I'm putting down everything that could go in a resume. So the focus on this is on our outcomes, not on the activities. If you're sending me, as a hiring manager, if I get a resume, and I get a lot of resumes that say, oh, well, I read the specifications and I wrote code and I debugged. Like, I know that from your job title. That doesn't tell me what you accomplished. Think of it this way. The difference between somebody saying, hey, over the summer, I volunteered and I took a hammer and I pounded 17,542 nails. It was awesome. Great, tells me about the activity. I have no idea what they did. But if somebody says, hey, I worked this summer and I helped build 20 homes with Habitat for Humanity for low-income housing, that outcome, that's a lot more meaningful. So it's very easy for us to get caught up in the activities because the activities are often what we think of and what we're focused on, but I recommend taking a step back and really looking at what's the outcome, what's the business value of what we did. What I always tell my team, and I'm sure Nicole will attest to this, as will Kasim back there, that our job is not writing code. If you're a developer, our job's not writing code. Code's what we use. Our job is creating business value. So understand what that business value is and make sure that that's what's recorded in the resume. So as we're going through the master resume, again, I have in my master resume stuff listed all the way back to that first job mowing lawns, talking about how I had to deal with, collecting the bills and invoicing and all that stuff. I'm not going to include that, but now I've got that master resume. From that, I can create a targeted resume. And the way that I do that is I make a copy of my master resume, I look at the job description, and then I just start deleting the things that aren't needed. That is so much easier than the writer's block and figuring out what do I say, because I already have everything laid out. At the end, I've got all the bullet points, and now all I really have to do is write that short summary on top. So one of the things that we have now that we didn't have 2 years ago is that we can use something like ChatGPT to help give us an idea of, well, what kind of thing could I say? You can provide the job description, you can provide your resume and ask saying, hey, what's a 3-sentence summary of why I'm a good fit for this? Then you can take that, rewrite it in your own words, and you now have a very powerful way to have that information, that top section in your resume, what you're targeting, why you want to be in that industry, and why you're going to bring value to that role.
Okay. All right. Cameras up. Where are we going to find those job postings? Remember, the job postings is going to be a list of bullet items that the hiring manager has said that you need to satisfy in order to be qualified for the role. You don't have to meet every requirement that they offer, but the more you can address in your resume, the stronger a match you'll sound like, the more they will advocate for your hiring. So here are the places to look. Open Source Job Hub. Full disclosure, they are a media sponsor this year. They're helping support. You're sitting here in this chair. They're providing every exhibitor in the hall free job postings. Be sure to check them out because you can go directly to the expo hall afterward and actually talk to the companies that have openings. Okay, so I just want to make sure that you all know how to use LinkedIn. The search in the upper left, you see the red oval, that's the search bar. You can put other keywords on the search bar in order to narrow down the companies and the jobs that you're looking for. If you just look for open source, you'll find over 1,000 postings. And you can narrow it down based on the kind of company or the kind of work situation or even the kind of scholarship you're looking for. And our consultants will help you with this. You can stop at Howard's desk on the way out, and you can tell them, I need to talk to somebody because I need help finding a role. Also, you can set up alerts using the same keywords that work for your search. So LinkedIn will go to you and say, hey, something new has come up. So, and this is our new job board, sponsored by opensourcejobhub.com. Cameras up. So the next section in our talk that I would like to address is the volunteer work connection. How do you take your volunteer experience and translate that into an effective, actionable way to enhance your career? This is where the rubber meets the road. How am I doing on time? Okay, so that ties in with step 4 of the Raise Me game plan for recareering, and that is converging with a company or hiring manager on a potential opportunity that works for you, okay? And first of all, do your homework. Never talk to an employer or go into a job interview until you've looked at all of the standard sources online and tried to figure out what it's like to work for that company and what the role you're looking for is like to actually fulfill. All these are free. Okay, LinkedIn is the gold standard for mining around, but a Facebook group, almost every big company has its own Facebook group. It's very informal. Blind is kind of special because only people that have corporate addresses at the company that you're targeting can actually answer your questions. Cameras up. Also, there is some programming that I would like to deprogram right now. In the United States, we have too much emphasis. We have a horrible habit of measuring people by their success by how much money they make. Your career is more than that. Our philosophy at Raise Me is salary is only one factor. Okay, and when you emphasize salary too much in your next position, you'll find that you're giving up other things that are very important to you. So if you target a company and as you work with them, you're finding they're not your top salary offer or they're not offering as much as you think that you wanted originally, they may have other things that they can offer you, but you need to know to ask for them. Here's some creative ideas, but there are probably many more, and as you work with our consultants, you may come up with them just in real time when you're talking with them. But obviously, work from home schedule is a big thing. If you prefer a role where you only have to go into the office once a week or once a month, that's worth money. Okay. Signing bonuses are something you can simply ask for, especially if you're not working with a recruiter, because often they'll have a recruiting budget. It doesn't necessarily have to be a per diem for relocating. It can just be the argument that you can make is, hey, if I stay at my company until the end of December, I get a $5,000 bonus. They can match that. Not every company can do this, but they won't do it if you don't ask. Flex time, training and certifications. There are companies that want to pay for your training. They want you to get training. you need to ask, what is your budget? How many people did you send to scale last year? So, 3 slides, pay attention. Integrate your work, your volunteer work with your resume and your interview, okay? Your resume is, as Jenson said, it's going to address the job posting, but it also acts like a table of contents for your discussion with the hiring manager, the HR personnel, everybody you're working with. So be sure that your resume has every talking point in it. Don't trust yourself. Oh, I'll just bring up this great experience I have at the Coast Guard Auxiliary running a division with 100 people in it. Right? Don't depend on your memory to do that. Put it in your resume and find a way to tie it in that the hiring manager will recognize, that it fits the role that you're applying for. And if you don't have any other ideas about how your volunteer work matches your next job, and if you're working with a consultant afterward, use this angle. The reason I did this volunteer work is because it's what I wanted to do when I grew up. So, Jenson, poor Jenson, he attended Scale for how many years?
Since scale 9, I think.
Scale 9, okay. He sat in those seats until Scale 9, and then last year, he attended a talk here. And I told him I play with helicopters. And now, Jenson plays with helicopters.
Yep.
So, it gives you something to talk about, and you'll see how people light up when they talk about something they're passionate about? That doesn't directly, I don't imagine that you're ever going to get a job working in the helicopter industry, if such an industry exists. But when he talks about the experience that he's getting in the Coast Guard Auxiliary, he can say, the reason I did that is because I want to go save lives. I want to support people that are getting rescue swimmer training with helicopters, and that leads right into the rest of the discussion. Okay? Second slide on how to tie this in. Emphasize what hiring managers are looking for in your vertical. So you're going to go on LinkedIn, look up the people you're interviewing with, connect with them. You can actually oftentimes find the person you're replacing, the person that left. You can see what their certifications were, where they went to college. You can get a sense for what the hiring company was looking for. When they ask you questions in the interview, don't just answer, oh yeah, I worked at so-and-so place for 3 years. Or I was a manager, I had 2 people reporting to me. Pitch it concisely, but explain why your experience matches what you've seen on LinkedIn that company is looking for. Especially for leadership roles. So I don't know how many mature people we have in the audience that are looking for roles. But when you get up into senior positions, the skill set, the technical skill set becomes more interchangeable. You might, for 10 years, be an expert in programming in one language, but then when you become a manager and you're running a team, they might be using a different technology, but your experience as a lead, training people, mentoring people, managing schedules, rollouts, rollbacks in case of emergency, dealing with customer support, dealing with the higher-ups, preparing your monthly reports, all of those things, those are very generic skills. And you do all the same thing in your volunteer work. If you work for an open source project, if you work for the Coast Guard Auxiliary, those more senior roles offer training and experience that's very generic. You just need to find a way to say it that will resonate with the manager that you're speaking to. So another thing that you can do with your volunteer work, volunteer multiple different places. Use your different social spheres. And try to find ways that your volunteer work creates a common theme. Use the same language working on multiple projects. In my case, I was always a leader, so I would be a team lead in working for different organizations, okay? And that because repetition is very persuasive. When a hiring manager sees the same kind of theme on your resume in multiple places, it convinces them that you are good for that, whatever that particular skill or whatever that particular kind of experience is that you're trying to promote in yourself. Okay, it's very persuasive. So I'll give you one example real quick. I went to my first startup in the mid-90s, 1996. It was an ISP, a fledgling ISP. It was back when AOL stock was $8 a share, and it was a crappy stock. And we wanted to take on AOL. I worked for that company for 8 years during the crazy dot-com boom, where you couldn't make mistakes badly enough in production that you'd ever really net lose customers. People were just thronging to the internet. I started out as a senior system administrator, that's what we called them back then, and eventually, because it was a startup, I became a lead, I became a senior lead, and then eventually I had multiple teams working for me in a 24/7 environment. And during that time, I met people at scale. I was sitting in one of these chairs once, and then they needed help with something, and so I ended up volunteering, and then I ended up leading a team, and I ended up recruiting volunteers. And a lot of those skills that I used to recruit volunteers and run teams and handle budgets and grow efforts and be successful and contribute to the larger organizational team, a lot of that translated directly to my experience in industry. And it happened for me at scale, and it can happen for you in the organizations that you volunteer for. So when I talk to people about my volunteer experience, next time I want a leadership role, I can talk about, I'm a second level, I've been a division vice commander, and I've had, through my volunteer work, actual professional charm school training. These are selling points. I didn't pay for any of this with anything except my labor and my goodwill. So I can highlight the progression and challenges that I've taken over the years. So how many people have volunteered for more than one organization? Okay. Did you do exactly the same thing in both organizations? But was there something in common? Did your work progress? So you started in one role, but you ended up with more and more responsibility? Almost always. If you don't smell bad, you're going to end up running a team, right? Okay. So cameras up. John Siklick's not here. He's our resident professor on the Raise Me team. This is his very favorite link for translating volunteer work into an IT job. Oh, but do I need to go back? Oh, okay, sorry, too fast. Just so you know, every Raise Me talk I ever give, any talk that you're going to see in this room will probably have elements of other previous talks, of feedback we've gotten from attendees and who have said what works for them and what doesn't. People tend to follow us from tech event to tech event, and they'll tell us, oh, hey, this thing you said, I used this in an interview, and it really changed things. So we learn from you. And we learn from all the people that volunteer and do the consulting work with us. And so this is kind of a compendium of all the best of. So these and other people are very responsible for the content in this talk. Why the uniform today?
That's a great question, Lori. So we're actually operating under orders today from the Coast Guard Auxiliary. They, asked us to come and talk to you specifically about volunteering for the Coast Guard Auxiliary, not just volunteering in general. We are involved in a number of things. As Lori said, we get to play with helicopters. We get to go out. A helicopter flies over, drops a basket down to our boat. We load a dummy into it. That's a crash dummy. It's not one of the other crew members. And, but we also are involved in other things. There's a photo of me teaching a navigation class. We do vessel safety examinations. Lori's involved where, if you're out on the boat and call in channel 16 because you have an emergency, it might be Lori that you're talking to. She's actually working with the active duty Coast Guard, responding to the radio. So it's a very exciting opportunity. Do you want to tell them that they should be here and not calling you?
Sorry, my phone is stuck.
No worries.
Can you turn the sound off on that for me? Thank you. I'm sorry,
All
guys.
right.
My phone got stuck. Go ahead, Jensen.
So I was just saying, there's a lot of opportunities. One of the things, there's actually, for the Coast Guard, on Instagram yesterday, there was a post from the Coast Guard saying, hey, we're looking for IT people. So, another opportunity to volunteer, get experience, and do some things.
Okay. Yeah, that's how I got started, actually. They needed security people, and I was a branch assistant for pen testing. I joined the Coast Guard Auxiliary to do nerd stuff, and I didn't even know how to tie my shoes, and now I'm a boat crew. So here's a question for you guys. I get this text message out of the blue a couple days ago from my co-speaker here. Since he met me, he's been doing this uniform thing. And then he sends me this text message saying, hey, there's this other volunteer work I do, and they're looking for people. I'm just wondering if you guys think that maybe I should take him up on this. Apparently, these folks are looking for help, too. Is turnabout fair play? Maybe it is. Yeah. Okay, so
Now?
that concludes our presentation.
Yep.
Yes, you can.
Yep. That would be great.
Limitation,
Yep.
the limitation is they did not give us 15 minutes to talk, so literally back to back, so we're gonna have to make sure the next speaker gets some time. It's gonna
Okay.
be really.
All right.
Yeah. You want?
Well, no, we want to
It's
do
up to
questions.
you. It depends on, do we have our next speaker in the house? Omar,
We've
are
got
you
like
here?
we got 10 minutes.
Perfect. Yeah, so we have 10 minutes, and I'll start the, yeah. I'll start the questions. We just have to make sure that he gets set up. So, with that said, who's first for our speakers?
Are the slides going to be available, uploaded later?
Did you guys upload them? Scale always tries to do that as long as you give us the slides. Yeah.
Yep. We will.
Okay. So please, people, let me get over to you so we have a recording of your questions. If not, we'll try to remember to repeat them. And I didn't do that. Okay. Who else?
Right over there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Where will the recordings be posted?
Let's see.
They process the bigger talks first, the important talks. But actually, you'll also find previous open source career day talks on our YouTube channel, Southern California Linux Expo, from previous years.
Yeah, please do. Because there are two things. We have the videos, so you'll have the presentation, and we also separately have the slide deck. So, yeah.
So the URL is youtube.com/at SoCal Linux Expo.
All right. Let's see. Who else do I have? Here we go. Okay. And people, it's uncomfortable. Let me hold the mic because that seems to be what Scale prefers. No, you're good. I knew you weren't going to kind of wander off on a tangent. Here we go.
Do you have any tips for balancing like a full-time job and a family and also volunteering? It's kind of a lot.
It can be a
Lori
lot.
wouldn't know anything about that.
Absolutely. But I think a big, part of this depends on where you're volunteering. So when my son was younger, I was very involved, and so I volunteered with scouting. So was spending time with him. My wife was happy to have us out of the house and doing stuff there. So part of it is you can find ways of volunteering. Just be creative and realize there are so many volunteer organizations out there that our kids are involved with, that our spouses are involved in, our partners. It's very easy. And as I said, with the time flexibility, there are places that would be happy to have somebody just for an hour a week. Because often it's just going, we need somebody technical that can help us with just, getting this data onto the website when we get the information every month. Doesn't have to be necessarily a huge commitment. So that's one of the beauties of this. And then, one of the things volunteer organizations understand, our life circumstances change. And so there's going to be times where, we've got time available and other times where I'm going to have to step back for a few months and they'll be fine with that. Work's not so much that flexible. All right. Yes.
Sorry. Hi. So, question on the hiring manager's perspective of screening through applicants, right? We're seeing like hundreds of applicants on different job postings for tech. I guess, how do you guys process through some of the applications and what makes the cut, what doesn't make the cut for being seen at all?
I think that a lot of what I'm looking for is really looking at, are you telling me the what you've accomplished, right? Because there are so many resumes that, if everybody talks about their activities, they're all going to look the same. Oh, hey, I was using Linux, and I was using this, and I was writing in Python, and I was doing this and that. But when you start talking about your accomplishments, I can see much more easily, is this a fit or not? And as Lori said, what I really look for is, three things in a candidate. Are you smart? Can you get things done? And are you not going to be a pain in the butt? And those are really the three things that I'm looking for. And if you can communicate that in your resume, and and the one that's often missing is the gets things done. Because if you're just listing your tasks and not your accomplishments, that's really hard to tell.